For one final time, we go racing in the IndyCar iRacing Series, and Speedway, Indiana will provide the perfect backdrop for the coronation of a new champion. There are 15 rounds in this championship, but it's come down to this, the final race of the season, to determine who will be crowned the second ever IndyCar iRacing Series champion. The Canadian Adam Crane comes into this race with a 23-point gap to the chasing Swede Hugo Olsen, and each driver knows that every position matters, with Crane needing to finish no less than 3 positions behind Olsen to secure this championship. Hello and thank you for joining us here live on the iRacing Esports Network for RaceBot TV's coverage of round number 15 of the IndyCar iRacing Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, doing double duty on the camera work and commentary, and I am delighted to be joined by Sumil Arora. And Sumil, the title battle has come down to the next 64 laps. How do you think these drivers will handle the pressure as they try to focus on the race in front of them?
The key word right here is going to be the pressure, because trust me, with a round so critical, there is going to be a lot of it. For them, I guess it's all about trying to sustain it as much as they can and make sure that their judgments are not clouded up, because when you come to a race like this one with such pressure and such heat right behind of you, it is so easy to make mistakes. In the end, composure will pay off.
And we'll take a look at your season schedule. It started all the way back at the end of April at the Circuit of the Americas, and we make our 4th and final trip to the Brickyard for this, the final race of the season at the road course configuration of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Sumil, it's an interesting one. We have a slightly older layout of the track than they are going to be racing around this very weekend. In fact, the car is about to go racing just in a couple of minutes in the real world as well, but it's an interesting track and promotes a lot of overtaking opportunities.
It actually does. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a pretty wide circuit, be it on the ovals or in the road course. So in comparison to, say, the last couple of road courses that we have had, say at Barber and Laguna Seca, here there are going to be quite a few chances. Case in point, turn number 1, you can go side by side, in fact even 3 wide in the heading into there, so opportunities galore here for all these drivers.
I'll take a quick look at the championship standings. We talk about that gap out front, but don't forget David Soranzo in 3rd place, still with an outside chance of the championship if the drivers in front of him slip up. Then you look at the battle for 4th and 5th. Cesar Manzado and Andreas Eek separated by just 1 point. There's a lot of battling still going on, but we talk about this track. Let's go ahead and take a look then at a lap on board, and there's a few different danger zones, if you will, that we're going to just take a look at now. Down in towards turn number 1 is your main passing opportunity, of course. Then you head down in through this double S section that leads back onto the home straight. Some of the most dreadful corners in the track, in my opinion, but it's one that you want to get right as you come down this back straightaway. Then at the end of the back stretch, you come through this left, right, left with that 90-degree left at the end, trying to set up for that run down onto the back straight. There you go. You want to carry as much momentum as you can. But let's jump on board as you come down across the yard of bricks, going the wrong direction if you're an oval fan, but you're going to head down into turn number 1. Speeds in excess of 290 kilometers an hour, hard on the anchors, trying to get all the way to the right-hand side so you can set up for that second left-hand corner and trying to carry the momentum. Use as much of the track width as you can here, just trying to slingshot your way down in towards that first left-hand hairpin. Stick on the right-hand side of the track, braking at the end of the curb on the left-hand side, and then stick as close to the inside, trying not to wash too far as you're trying to set up here onto the Homeland Straight. You can use a little bit of the runoff there. You can see not all the tires, that left side of the white line, but up through the gears once again as you brake now on the right-hand side. Look for the wall. That's going to be your braking zone. Keep it hugged into the left-hand side. You can do the same here as you try and set up for this 90-degree left-hander. You can use a lot of the curbing there. Try to get a little bit aggressive on the throttle, and then down now. This is one of your most important traction zones of the track as you head down back onto the oval. This is where you'll see the cars in the real world heading for that little right-hand chicane, but in this configuration all the way down to the back straight. And now here you come across the line. It's a short lap, Subal, but important to get every one of those corners right.
That, Arjuna, was mind-blowing. Why not racing in this one?
Well, I'm not, because I'm up here and I'm very much looking forward to this one with you, Sumo, because qualifying underway, there's just a minute and 50 seconds left, and we talk about championship fights. Well, let's take a look. Left-hand side of your screen, Cesar Manzado. He's in 4th position in the standings with a 1:10.527, currently leads the provisional qualifying times. And Henry Bennett, last season's champion, who has not returned to defend the crown throughout the 15 rounds, up into 2nd place. But look at your championship contenders, 4th and 5th, and look at that golf in quality right now. Olsen a little bit slow, 4/10 off Manzado's pace.
Yeah, there is quite a gap. The question is right here, how can these drivers cope up with every single piece of these challenges that this track offers? Because there's barely any corners. It's a very short circuit, so every single corner here matters more, and that's why you can see longer gaps, because then some drivers can just master certain corners better, and so you see such gaps between all of them. And it'll be interesting to see how things play out. I'm interested to see how Cesar Manzado can manage things off from the very top. But again, I think we still have Hugo Olsen and Crane coming up with potentially one more qualifying lap. Let's hope to see that, because otherwise there seems to be a big gulf and gap between these guys right here.
Well, even when that gulf in performance, that draft is very important. And looking at the gaps right now, it does not appear as though anyone's still out on track. However, the gap between 1st and 2nd is just 5/1000ths of a second. So we wait for the final seconds to click off the qualifying clock. There we are. In fact, qualifying is over. Let's go ahead and take a look at the starting grid for today's race. And so it is Cesar Manzado for North Sim Racing with a 1:10.527, taking the pole position away from Henry Bennett and Powerslide Motorsports, just half a tenth behind. Stefan Petrak for Team Heiskenveld qualifies in the 3rd position, with championship leader Adam Crane starting on the outside of row number 2. Row number 3, it is Hugo Olsen and David Soranzo, so 2nd and 3rd in the championship lineup on row number 3, with Guillaume Brisset and Lester Hjorkak on position number 8. Andreas Eek and Richard Craig on the outside of the top 10, with Connie Nasland, Carlos Gomez Doterto on the row number 6. Then Eric Winter, Matthias Kraus, Robin Glenix, and Aaron Roos 15th and 16th. The last row of the grid is going to be Anna Gjorfi and Vilda Wallin. It's a slightly smaller grid than we've sometimes seen here in the IndyCar iRacing Series, Sumo, but with the importance of that draft, we may see a lot of these drivers sticking close together for the early portions of the race.
Absolutely, a smaller grid does not necessarily mean a boring race. In fact, we've seen time and again that this can be something very interesting towards the end. So, as you mentioned, Arjuna, the draft is going to be a significant factor, and also keeping it clean on the first lap, because it may sound like a very cheesy and corny phrase that commentators say all the time, but no, turn 1 in Indianapolis, it's a proper boneyard. It can be a proper demolition derby, and keeping your nose clean is going to be so critical to having a good race, especially when you consider that these cars with damage, oh, they're hard to drive.
And a little bit of damage to either end of the car can require a little bit more time down on pit lane, and that's something else that we need to consider here, Sumo. It's a 64 lap affair in front of us, but we're looking at no fuel saving required for this race. We're looking at maybe between 22 and 26 laps on the fuel strategy this time.
And this just means that drivers can push even harder and give you some high quality racing. None of that fuel saving nonsense. It's all going to be full throttle every single lap of this race, and this just means that the drivers, well, their aggression levels can be turned up to 200.
And of course, Sumo, the road course configuration was actually built for Formula One to come to Speedway, Indiana, but we look at the Indy cars as they make their way off the grid for the pace lap. And interestingly enough, the first race here that the Indy cars ran in 2014, they had a standing start. And can you imagine being the pole position winner, Sebastian Saavedra, who then stalled his car and had a massive pileup, as sometimes happens. Stalling on a standing start is one of the most dangerous places to have that happen to you. Fortunately, no major injuries. Luckily, though, the rolling start here should be a little bit smoother for all involved.
The rolling start should be smoother, and I think it should offer more opportunities with the draft heading into turn 1 as well, because when you're in the standing start, a lot of it comes down to how you're able to match your revs and how you're able to get the car up and ready when the green light goes. So naturally, these Indy cars, they don't really have as sophisticated startup systems like a Formula 1 car does, so you could expect those sort of things. But here, it's going to be far cleaner. Oh, bit of a Larry moment for the leader right there. But otherwise, I think you could see a lot more drivers heading for lunges into turn 1 because you have the confidence of not stalling the car and then the godsend of the draft.
And that draft is going to be so crucial. We'll see how that plays out throughout the course of this one here. I do expect some drivers to try and do a little bit of fuel saving, just try and make one of these pit stops a little bit shorter there. The cars come through that 90-degree left-hand corner. It's going to be very crucial to get a consistent line through that one to run yourself then back onto the oval, trying to carry as much momentum as you can. But we take a look once again, all of these cars revving the engines, they're ready to go. 18 Indy cars here waiting for that Chevy pace truck to pull down onto pit lane, leave the field in control of Cesar Manzado in 4th position in the championship. Not really contending for the championship win here, but with the strength of field that we do have, he'll be looking to secure a good haul of points over his championship contender, or championship rival, Andreas Eek. They're battling for 4th and 5th in the championship, but just moments to go. They head down the back straightaway for the first time. They're going to go down the wrong way, and green flag is up in the air, and Cesar Manzado with an early jump has managed to pull away very slightly down in towards turn number 1. They're going to go. Henry Bennett having to fend off Adam Crane, who's had a great start in towards turn number 1. Hugo Olsen on the outside as well is going to get squeezed, and he's going to be shuffled down into P number 5. Stefan Petrat holds on to P4, but there is Adam Crane down the inside of Henry Bennett and up into P2, knowing he needs the result for the championship here. Crane is looking to put on the drive of his life as he tries to now chase down Cesar Manzado. We head down through these switchback hairpins back onto the Holman straight for the first time, and everyone has managed to get through the field clearly. Sumil, it's been a good start for your championship leader.
It absolutely has, and talk about making an impact early on. Adam Crane with a brilliant move heading into turn 1, and he gets it all sealed and delivered. And the VRS car, not only does it look good, it looks fast today.
And he's going to have to defend Powerslide Motorsports. Bennett behind him in the number 1 machine, running his traditional British racing green. But as we come back onto the oval for the first time, Cesar Manzado has already built up a 7/10 of a second advantage as we go through what would be turn number 1. We headed through it the wrong way though, crossing the start finish line. There's a little bit of action further back in your field, but single file throughout the top 10 right now as Crane now looks to the inside as they head down into turn number 1, and he's going to get the position from Manzado. Fantastic pass there, and behind him Bennett is having to fend off a charge from Stefan Petrat. Crane is on a mission right now, Sumil. We talked about him off the top needing to come 3 positions behind Olsen to secure the championship, but right now he wants to get that win.
He absolutely does. Someone seems to be rather fired up today. And man, Crane is making up the impact very early on, making some fantastic moves, but Manzado will not let him go. As we come out of the backstretch, he is closing up just a little bit too much. And running on board right here. And things are just closing up in the upper half, aren't they, Arjuna? Everything is just bottling up. Stefan Petrat wants to get close to Henry Bennett. And this section of corners, your exits need to be superb for you to get any chance for turn 1.
And let's go and ride on board with Adam Crane. There you can see half a second is the advantage to Cesar Manzado. Let's see what's going to happen now with the draft, because Crane, I do believe Sumil, may have used a push to pass to get out into the race lead right now. Weaving trying to break the toe. He's going to head to the outside line. Cesar Manzado too far behind, and as we dive into turn number 1, no position changes. They're all single filed out. I wonder if a little bit of fuel saving starting very early from some drivers further back in your field.
Well, they don't necessarily need to fuel save extremely much right here in Indianapolis, but still, a little bit helps too much, because towards the end, you want to be taking up the lowest possible fuel time in the pit lane. So for these drivers, that can be a little bit of a factor, but Adam Crane, well, he just does not care. He sees the moves, he goes for a move.
And now we're looking at Petrat looking to the inside of Bennett as they head down onto that turn number 8 at the back straight. Now look at Olsen, who's looking for an opportunistic pass. He's going to back out of that one, but that's not really a prime overtaking opportunity. Instead, you really want to wait until you get down into turn number 1, and the gap between 2nd and 3rd is now starting to build up. I wonder if we're looking at a 2-horse race for the win here. The title definitely looks very secure in the Canadians' hands out front. People asking about the new updated Indy road course. Well, the iRacing team actually had a trip planned out to scan the new layout but unfortunately, due to the lockdown over the last few months, that has had to be postponed. Olsen looks to the inside. Bennett tries to give him a tow as well, but Olsen's not going to be able to get the move done, as now he's going to try and hang it around the outside of turn number 2. Nope. He's going to give the position up to Petrat there, and he's going to try and fight that one another day. Out front, though, Manzardo is really piling on the pressure right now. He knows he needs some solid points here if he wants to try and maybe even overtake David Soranzo in this title fight for that third and final position on the podium, but Manzardo right now really putting the pressure to the Canadian out front. Down onto Hullman once again we go. Sumo, we're already 4 laps into this one. I have a feeling these laps are going to fly by.
Oh, they absolutely are, with the drivers driving as quick as they are right now and pushing hard on every single corner. The laps are just going to fly out very, very quickly, and especially if you're Cesar Manzardo, trailing away behind one Adam Crane. And both of these drivers have shown time and again why they are such spectacular performers. And for Cesar Manzardo, that waiting game can just turn out to be way too long, because if he does not get the draft at the right time, Crane will block him off and maintain that position. When does Manzardo go? When does he pull the trigger? Seems to be right now. Oh my goodness me.
And Crane defends hard to the inside line, forces Manzardo to try and take the outside. Not really a good overtaking opportunity, but in the background, what you'll notice, Sumo, is Hugo Olsen now up into P number 4. We'll see if we can get the replay up on your screen now. And here it comes. Petrat with a terrible exit back onto the oval there. He got out into the grass, and that checked up his momentum, and Olsen able to get the position very early on. We'll jump back over to the live pictures right now. Just 2 seconds separating your top 6 drivers right now. Cesar Manzardo having a little bit of a lockup, running a little bit wide there. But there we go. 5 cars, 6 cars, 7 cars, in fact, Subal, separated by just 3 seconds. That draft is proving to be vital as Olsen goes a little bit deep into turn number 8.
And this will just keep on continuing till the very end of the race. The drivers are just able to stick close to each other for such a long time. And when they built this course for Formula 1, they had this thing in mind. They wanted the drivers to be very close to each other because, of course, at that times, Formula 1, just as today, was slightly dull and slightly tricky to pass on. And this track right here is producing some excellent racing in these Dallara IR18s. Already spectacular cars. Hugo Olsen now, Arjun, from the looks of things, is getting a kick up the back. He somewhat seems to have realized that Adam Crane is making positions. He's my leader. And now, if I want to win the championship, I've got to do something rather special right here. So, you can see his pace increasing bit by bit, lap by lap now.
Yeah, but back here in 4th position, his teammate is in front of him, and I do wonder if at some point Henry might let the Swede by and just let him try and make his own fight to go up and try and battle at the pointy end of this field. But working lap number 6 as we ride on board with the Swede. You talk about the road course being built for F1 cars, Sumo, but it's had a lot of variations, shall we say, in the last 20 years. Obviously, first constructed for the 2000 F1 Grand Prix, but when MotoGP raced here from 2008 to 2015, they race in the same direction as the oval cars do when we run the Indy 500 here. So they run, obviously, counterclockwise as opposed to the clockwise. That did create another set of challenges for the race organizers as they designed the circuit. And indeed, now as IndyCar has come here, we talk about that new configuration again. Well, a third and final reconfig for the track.
Exactly, there have been lots of changes. So MotoGP, of course, they had that infield chicane of sorts that IndyCar now uses as its second to last corner. It's interesting. The beauty of an oval is that when you convert it into a road course, there are so many different layouts that you can actually use. And if it's not a circuit like Charlotte, where you have to have a major setup and you're only confined to one oval layout, at Indianapolis, you can go with multiple ones. In fact, this long looping left-hand hairpin still exists. So if anytime IndyCar wants to use this one, they can actually go ahead and use this layout. Now, of course, they come in and take a very quick left-right chicane over there. So multiple opportunities, multiple chances, multiple opportunities for the circuit organizer to do things their way. In fact, when NASCAR races here, they have a different layout altogether. So it's amazing. That's the way the ovals go. That's how you're able to actually get the diversity in, and that's what makes it so much fun.
Yeah, well, those 2 hairpins, Sumo, they may still be there, but I wish that they never end up on any official layout of this track ever again. It's one of the most horrible sections of any track I know, and Olsen made a little mistake coming out of that pit track trying to apply the pressure. You see further up in the field as well. Look at Manzardo trying to get the run on Crane, but once again not going to get close enough. And I wonder here, Subal, if Manzardo is preserving his push-to-passes. Now 10 uses of the push-to-pass that each of these drivers is going to get. That's an extra 60 horsepower or so. Now in a 64-lap race, you want to balance your usage of them and not get too aggressive too early. Crane is starting to struggle a little bit more, and Manzardo and Bennett starting to apply a lot more pressure.
And the best part is, unlike a Laguna Seca or a Mid-Ohio where it's very tough to pass, everything is very open at Indianapolis. So the benefit of the push-to-pass will be multiplied because the track is wide open and you can in fact go for moves right here. I mean, we saw at Mid-Ohio, drivers were conserving their push-to-pass, but there was no benefit. You couldn't really use it because you simply cannot pass at those tracks with such ease. Over here, though, things are somewhat different, so perhaps it makes more sense to conserve your push-to-passes and gun for it later on. Because who knows, the draft with the push-to-pass and the width of the circuit, it can all come together for you if you're in P2.
And out of the 18 cars that took the green flag, we do have a single retirement from this one. Robin Glennox has unfortunately had to park it, so we'll try and get a replay of that one as they dive down into turn number 1 once again. This is lap number 9 they're working now. We talk about a 22 to 26 lap fuel window. All of these drivers are starting to get very close to one another. Once again, top 6 drivers separated by less than 2.5 seconds. It really is up for grabs right now, and I think fuel saving and that pit strategy as Bennett goes very deep, trying to avoid running into the back of Manzardo in front of him. This train is really starting to develop the potential, Sumo, for those alternate pit strategies.
You can potentially do so when you're all stacked up on the same cards. You want to do something different. You want to roll the dice and come up with something that nobody else has. And that's what these drivers will be thinking at this stage. Should I go the longer game? Should I play it shorter? What shall I do is the question in the mind of these drivers. And some of the top ones, like Adam Crane, Olsen, Manzardo, they may have already worked pretty hard on this race because it's been a long time coming. The finale, they already know that this is where all the things are going to be decided. So they must have practiced, they must have guessed their strategies, understood what is the fastest way around the circuit for 64 laps. And if anything's for sure, they will stick by that strategy and play their games and play their cards as they're supposed to already. But can we see a gamble? Perhaps, maybe not as well.
Well, Crane just put in the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:11.578, and we'll see how that one plays out throughout the rest of the race. You can see he's built up a little bit of a gap at this point now. Obviously, maybe potentially using one of those push-to-passes. Maybe Manzardo not getting a great exit onto the oval corners, oval part of the track as well, but we still watch this group up front. They're starting to now break away from the rest of your field. We look at Andreas Eek, who's back in 10th position right now. He's someone who's fighting Cesar Manzardo in the championship. He came in 1 point behind Manzardo, but he's currently mired down in 10th position and starting to lose track of the few cars in front of him. Rashard Craig is the driver in front of him that he's chasing right now. 7.5 seconds behind your leaders though, Sumo. This is not what Eek would have wanted to see.
Absolutely not, but I guess it's just a representation of Andreas Eek's season so far. He's shown potential, he's had a few bright sparks, but perhaps somewhere down the line things just seem to go wrong for Andreas and he's not able to capitalize on all the momentum he turns are generating. It's a bit sad because otherwise we would have seen a very interesting championship battle involving him as well, but perhaps c'est la vie, that's to say.
And we ride on board with Petrad as well for Team Heisenfeld. He's really putting the pressure now on Hugo Olsen in front of him. There you can see Olsen getting very loose off the corner and having to go very defensive to the outside. Look, Stefan Petrad. He's going to try and hang it around the outside. And Olsen's going to slam the door shut and cover off the inside. But now with the over-under, is Petrad going to be able to make it work? No, indeed. What he tries to do instead is just build up the momentum off the corner. But unfortunately, did not time that one right at all. And in fact, now Olsen is starting to lose track of the cars in front as Manzardo as well continues to apply the pressure on Crane. This is proving to be a very interesting race at this point, Subal. They're not maybe having so many passes on the track, but all the while, you know, there's a lot of fighting going on.
Oh, there is. Stefan Petrov will be just rubbing his hands like a hungry fly, and he'll be watching Hugo Olsen go past. This would have been the chance. Had he had a good final sector, he could have attacked Hugo Olsen right here. Instead, Petrov is under pressure from behind. Here he comes then. He's blocking it off at turn number 1, so everything is nice and clean, Arjuna, but from the looks of things, it is all spicing up. David Soranzo senses an opportunity too. The gaps are just getting smaller. Everything is picking up here in Indianapolis, and before you know it, the pit window is going to begin as well.
Yeah, we're already 12 laps into this one. Time is really flying by. 64 laps is our season finale here tonight. And right now, David Soranzo looks at the end of this leading train. He looks to maybe pick up the pieces if Crane and Olsen have a few technical difficulties perhaps, but nonetheless, still having a very solid race is the Frenchman. He will be wondering, Sumo, at one point, just a few races ago, he was leading the championship, and then one bad round has put him out of major contention for the title. You look at Olsen as well, currently running in 4th position. It's another season of what could have been. Now, we talk about the season-long standings, the iRacing standings. The way they work is across your 15 rounds, you can take 2 or 3 drop weeks, and unfortunately for Olsen, 2 of the 3 drop weeks that he had taken were because he had to miss the rounds, whereas for Crane, he's been able to make every single round of this championship, and as a result, his worst round of the season, Sumo, has been 150 points basically. So for Olsen, it very much a question of what could have been if he was able to make 2 of the races and secure some good solid points in those ones.
Absolutely. As a driver, you always wonder what could have been, what should have been, and what I may have done. But at this case, you can't really think about that. The pressure situation right now is such that Hugo Olsen, he can't be thinking about the past or what may happen if he misses out on the championship. For now, the only thing that his focus is going to be on is, how do I maximize from this race? How do I get the most points? And how do I get the most race pace out of this particular car? Because the guys up ahead, they are proper challenges. Oh my goodness me, something's happening for the lead. Manzato is getting ever so close to the Crane. Hugo Olsen will be watching in the back, and he'll be thinking, man, this is the time to get a move on.
And Manzato is really trying to find a way around. Now, one unfortunate thing as a result of one of the most recent iRacing builds is we can no longer take a look at the push-to-passes that every single one of these drivers has used, so it's a bit difficult for us to try and assess that portion of the race strategy, Sumo. As we head down into turn number 1, I wonder if Manzato is feeling the urge at this point to get on that button, use those 60 extra horsepowers, move himself back out front to the race lead. Because we take a look now on the left-hand side of your screen. Once again, there you'll see the positions gain as they work their way in towards one of these double hairpins. There you can see Crane, he's up 3 positions from his starting spot. Manzato wants that pole position where he started back to himself.
He absolutely does, but at this stage you have to ask yourself the question, is it really worth it? Because if you're Cesar Manzato, naturally as a racing driver, you want to be the first person on the track. You want to be the leader. It's an ego thing, it's a character thing, call it whatever you want to. But is it worth it? Is it worth putting in the extra risk and burning out your tires and your fuel? Because then in the pit lane, Arjuna, he'll be having to stop for longer, and that is where Adam Crane could jump him off once again. So for Manzato, it's all about balancing it out, being as delicate as possible with this.
And as they come down the straight once again, he's closer than he's ever been, gapped just a few tenths of a second, but you can see him stalling out. I wonder if he is saving fuel back there. You can see him go very deep into that first corner. He's now going to lose out a little bit on turn number 2. Bennett not going to try and stick his nose where it doesn't belong, I think. So 1, 2, and 3, they still ride Crane, Manzato, Bennett, with Olsen and Petrat still in close pursuit. The top 4 cars separated by almost just 1 second at this point, Sumo. We're at the famous Brickyard, but you'd be mistaken for thinking we're not on the oval layout at this point.
Exactly, the gaps are just about as entertaining. And you call single-seater racing boring, folks? Nah, this is where all the fun is. When the drives are good, when the circuit is good, when the conditions are good, everything just gets all that much better. And look at Bennett at the back. He is just under pressure from Hugo Olsen, and all the activity can begin right here, because Hugo Olsen, if he gets a good draft, oh Bennett, you try and stop him. Here we come then, final corner. Rounds it off as beautifully as possible. They may be feeling a bit odd because normally you turn left over here, but you're turning right, and he's He's getting closer then, but not close enough it seems.
It seems like we're in a portion of the race where all of these front 7 drivers content to keep their pace. You look further back though, there's Connie Nasland trying to look to the outside of Rashad Craig as they go down into turn number 1. Sorry, that's the number 15, Lester Hjorkak, who he's trying to get past. Rashad Craig putting the pressure on behind him. We've got a few of these battle packs forming now. The gap between 7th and 6th place, well, it's up to 4 seconds. There you can see. If we take a look at the lap gaps as well, Sumo, I wonder if the drivers out front know that they just need to pull away a little bit here. All of these drivers really scrapping it out as Eek takes a look to the inside of Rashad Craig. Going to try and set up the over-under here as they go down the back straightaway. But once again, these drivers really starting to fall off hard at this point.
Oh, they are. Because when you start to fight with each other, you start to lose pace eventually. You drive slower. And that's why these guys are losing time to the leaders. They will care somewhere down the line. They want to get as high points finishes as possible, but there seems to be a clear gulf in performance between them and the leaders, so I don't think it should be much of a problem. But what can Andreas Eek do from that position? He's been trying to do quite a few things down in the first sector, just not working out for him, it seems.
I think right now all of these drivers content to just hold position. There has been an issue further back in your field, and we have a car down on pit lane. Let's see if we can grab a replay of this incident. It involves the number 17, Anna Gjorfi, who just loses it on her own, and that's going to be a lot of damage to that car, and that might be the second retirement, Sumo, we have from this race here.
Yup, smaller grid, I beg your pardon, getting ever so smaller then. This track, well, it's not really like the classic modern Formula 1 circuit with a lot of runoff and all this other stuff. You have grass on the exit, certain places you do have runoff, but it still can catch you out because certain corners just tighten up so trickily, and if you make a mistake, you're straight away on the grass and you lose control, and all these drivers just end up not having any control of their car whatsoever. It may be wide, but it can certainly catch you out, that's for sure.
Manzardo once again with a very good exit onto this oval portion. You can see Bennett has actually lost a little bit of ground now. We work lap number 17. When we cross the line, that'll be 17 done as well. So we ride on board with the Manzardo right now. Here you can see if we jump onto a slightly closer shot, you can see there the revs, 11,700 RPM. So he's still fully on the throttle. I wonder, Sumo, if maybe Manzardo is running a little bit more downforce than Crane out front. Now remember, this is an open setup series, so all of these teams will have been working on their setup throughout the weeks leading up to this one. And I wonder if right now Manzardo is just stalling out and unable to really get the move done.
Yep, he's not able to get past. He's certainly shown a lot of intent and a lot of signs of opportunity over here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but somewhere down the line he's missing that X factor that he needs on the main stretch. That's why he can't make the move down into turn 1. Now he seems closer, and it must be a trend quite often because you see Manzardo get closer in the corners. Right here he will get on the tail of Adam Crane, but somewhere down the line on the exit, Arjuna, he just seems to have that extra drag because of the downforce, and he simply cannot get past Crane when it matters.
Yep, and once again we come back onto the oval going through the what is traditionally turn number 1, and I'm just wondering here, Sumo, as we work lap 18 and 19, got about 4 laps left until that pit window opens. I'm assuming Crane is going to be one of the first cars down onto pit lane. I wonder if someone like Olsen is trying to extend it out to maybe lap 25 or 26. Now, in the past, when the IndyCar Series has visited this track in iRacing, it's often been a fuel-saving race. You can save a little bit of fuel, and much like we saw at Road America with Andrew Kinsella taking the win as a result of cutting off a pit stop, I wonder if some of these drivers are trying to just take that spirit in this race here and make that last stop as short as possible. Once again, 6 cars separated by 2.5 seconds.
And naturally, racing drivers tend to keep their push-to-passes saved up for later on. So if they go for a lighter last stop, they'll be having a much lower fuel load and extra push-to-passes to use. Now, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a genius in terms of how to set up a racing car, but low fuel loads, an extra push to pass, and a circuit as fast as flowing as this one, it just lines up for some extravagant racing towards the end. All the drivers, well, they'll be at their absolute best at that stage. Some may be worn out, but the others, well, that's where the fun begins, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and Bennett is starting to lose track a little bit of this front too. I wonder if he's going to just have to put in another lap that is very good. You'll see them weaving in the background of the shot as well. There's the 7th through 11th place cars are all scrapping it out in the second group of cars that we have. So 2 groupings of cars that we have on the track. And you take a look at the track map in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. There you can see as Cesar Manzardo comes around turn number 4, 5, and 6. Now you can see that chasing pack is just getting to turn number 4. You can see some of the stragglers as well, Sumo. We're not in a position here, I would say, where I'm expecting lap traffic to be much of a factor.
Yeah, that's the one thing that came to my mind after looking at that graphic. And from the looks of things, everything is all nice and clean. Everything is very polished at this stage, so all the drivers have enough gaps. They can go around, do their own stuff without worrying about any lap traffic. But somewhere down the line, you kind of expect things to come into perspective, because now, although we are reaching the halfway mark, the gap is still not as big. Later on, after the pit stops, that is when some of the rather inexperienced drivers start to experience the fatigue, because doing 64 consistent laps of Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the peak of your game is no easy task. When some of the younger drivers or the more inexperienced ones start to do things like that, their performance tends to tail off later on. Oh my goodness me, that got close for Manzardo. He came in like a wrecking ball, but didn't wreck Adam Crane there, thankfully. Phew, that got me scared.
I think Manzardo is starting to get a little bit frustrated at this point. He's trying as hard as he can to dive it into every single corner that he can, but you talk about the mental fatigue, Sumo. Something interesting I was watching on YouTube just a few days ago. Now, obviously, the world's fastest gamer was won by James Baldwin for Veloce Esports last year, and he's been competing in the British GT Championship with Team RJN and a McLaren 720S. And one thing I noticed is that one thing he was told, rather, by a driving coach is, despite the fact that James still does a lot of preparation on his simulator, the one thing that he is really struggling to learn in the real world is that consistency that you can build up in the virtual car is much tougher to replicate in the real car, rather. In the virtual world, you have certain variables, that's definitely for sure, but in the real world, the number of variables that come together to produce the racing that you get just means it's that much more difficult to be very consistent. And as we watch Manzardo try and draft up once again, it's seeming like those variables in iRacing are playing out very similarly here. Every lap we're seeing the cars doing very similar things in this lead pack, and I wonder if some of these drivers are just getting very used to that sense of being able to be very consistent.
Absolutely, you're doing this from the comfort of your home. You're sitting on your chair, the AC is nice and well. In case you need it, you've got a water bottle next to you as well. Everything is nice, sorted and clean. When you're in a racing car, though, it's quite the opposite, isn't it? It's all hot, sweaty, you've got the G-forces, and you've also got someone on the pits. That's Connie Naslund, it seems.
Yep, a few cars have dived onto the pit lane, Sumo, a little bit earlier than I may have expected. Now, we'll see what happens when your leaders come around. They're obviously just coming through turns 9 and 10. We watch them actually coming back onto the oval now, and once again, Manzardo is very close to the rear of Adam Crane. Let's jump on board with him once again. And let's see what happens down onto pit lane. No one in front of them. Let's take a look off the rear shot as well. You'll see there are a few cars who have decided to peel down onto pit lane. It does look as though Petra and Soranzo are the 2 cars down onto pit lane. So split strategies, and now we'll see what happens. But actually, Suba, before I pass it over to you, Matthias Kraus is at an issue. We'll see if we can get a replay of this one, but he was further down in your field and is coming out of pit lane. This is something that we're going to have to watch out for. You can see cars in the background, but they're quite far out of shot. However, Cold Tires just looping it around all on his own, and fortunate that no one was there to collect the pieces, if you will.
He'll just be hoping that nobody saw that. He'll just look around left and right and say, was anyone there? No, it's all right. Okay, it's all nice and clean for me. Bit of an unfortunate mistake, of course. Cold Tires coming into perspective, as you mentioned, but for these guys, the tires are nice and warm. Everything is peaked up and ready. In fact, their fuel tanks will be light as well. So, what can Hugo Olsen do on Bennett? He's currently in P number 4. He needs those points. He needs those positions on all the drivers up ahead of him if he wants to win the championship. And Bennett will not let him go. Do they come to the pits this time? In fact, yes, they do.
And very interesting to note, Bennett is the only car extending it one more lap as they get down onto the pit speed limiter. I hope they all got down there in time. It looked a little bit close, But let's take a look then at these front three cars as they work their way down onto pit lane. If you're curious about the pit lane time for Stefan Petra and David Saranzo, we're looking at about 43.2 seconds for the fastest one of them. So take a look at the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Once again, look for the 4 and 7, and you'll see Saranzo has actually lost out quite a bit on Stefan Petrat. So watch the 4 of Petrat as he comes around once again. He was hounding Olsen at one point for that 4th position. Crane is off the jacks right now. Fuel still going into that one. He's going to win the race off pit road. The gap between those two cars is pretty close. And in fact, Olsen has managed to jump Manzardo as well. So Manzardo with a slow pit stop now going to fall down. And Olsen versus Crane on that first lap. The cold tires. Olsen is going to try and put the pressure on here, but you can see just how nervous the car is. We ride on board with who is your net race leader, and just look at how ginger he's having to be, getting so carefully onto that throttle, really trying to manage the car. But right now Manzardo is losing out on those cold tires.
No, he is. He is. You just have to tread your way around in the circuit with cold tires. Incident.
And that's Petrat around. Stefan Petrat has lost it all by himself. We'll get the replay up on your screen right now, but cold tires, Petrat has already been out for a lap. So just pushing a little bit too hard perhaps. And here you'll see coming into the the first one of his hairpins, he's going to loop it around very early, Sumo.
Yep, quite clearly he got the power down a bit too early on, and with 700 horsepower behind you, you kind of expect something like that to happen once in a while. Petrat spins round and round, and his tires must be having a major flat spot as well. So, as if things were not bad enough for him already, it's gone worse. And Hugo Olsen is now attacking Crane. This could be for the lead.
That was
oh my God!
That was almost contact on 3 separate occasions, and Olsen trying to go deep around the outside. He's going to go off into the grass and hop the curb. He's got damage to that front left side of the wing as well. And Henry Bennett has come out in the net race lead. Let's try and get a replay in just a few laps, but let's first take a look though at Henry Bennett on these cold tires in his British Racing Green Power Slide number 1. Crane has got those tires up to temp and pressure. You can see the confidence that he's got compared to Bennett in front of him, but now down the back straight, the gap's a little bit too big. Sumo, that is some drama. Olsen saw the position and went for it.
There is acrimony left, right and center. This just reminds me of the Felix Rosengus incident I think that we saw at the last Indy GP. Turn number 1 just tightens up so much on the exit. It's hard to go side by side. And was a bit naughty there, I can tell you, from Adam Crane to try and block off Hugo Olsen. He forced him the long way around, and Hugo Olsen just had to become the world's fastest lawnmower. And the damage on the front wing, Arjuna, it's going to impact him. Indy cars are heavy on aerodynamics. It will impact him. It will slow him down. In fact, as if that's all not done yet, Hugo Olsen in the next pit stop, he'll have to go longer because iRacing will forcefully repair his front wing too.
And there's been a pass out front as well for the race lead. Bennett has just got passed by Adam Crane. We'll take a look at the replay in just a few seconds. However, Sumo, very, very important was that little position for Hugo Olsen. There you can see the damage to that front left that he's now going to have to carry for the next 20 laps or so. And his championship hopes are going up in smoke right now. 20 laps for him to hold on here. It's going to be tough for him, especially now that Crane is back out front.
Well, he was hell-bent on getting that position, but the only thing bent right now is his front wing, sadly. So for Hugo Olsen, all the pumped-up aggression, everything that he had in mind, ending up the wrong way. And perhaps, I don't even know if it was completely his fault. We're now looking at the replay of Adam Crane moving past Bennett. I think it's nice and easy. He's got fresher tyres. Not fresher, but more warmed-up tyres would be the right term. And uses the draft to get the move done very cleanly heading into turn 1. And if you're Adam Crane right now, you can just take a deep breath, relax, have a sip of water and think, right, I've got this race in my bag right now. I just need to be clean, clear and consistent. Easier said than done, mind you, but if you're a driver of the caliber of Adam Crane, it's surely something you know how to do.
And there was actually quite a lot of commotion going on, as just before that incident, we'll try and grab another look at it now, in fact, as well. Let's go and watch this move back, because they're all now single filed out, and there you can see the very tail end of it, the block all the way to the pit wall from Adam Crane, and Olsen just going a little bit deep under braking. That part was his fault. However, let's try and spool this one up a little bit further and ride on board with the Swede here. Coming out of the oval, he's going to get a good exit here. Both of these cars on the colder tires, so Olsen was pushing that a little bit harder, able to get up into the draft, and I would have to assume using a little bit of push to pass here, but coming through the final turn, you can see he's trying to just hug the white line, keep it as low as possible there, and here comes the weaving from Crane all the way to the outside first, and now he's going to go all the way down onto the pit wall. That is a fair move in all regards there, Sumo. He moved early enough. However, this is where it all goes wrong for the Swede. Just locks the brake up, and unfortunately there, completely self-inflicted.
I don't blame you, Bolton, for this one. I think it happens whenever you're a racing driver and you're trying to follow that person up ahead of you. Quite often, you end up being restricted, or rather get into a situation of a tunnel vision where you focus only on the car ahead of you. And sometimes that can be so distracting that you end up forgetting a braking point. For Hugo Olsen, I guess it was just like that. He was just too busy and his mind was too distracted by all the weaving that he forgot to brake at that very critical moment. And knowing Hugo Olsen, he's attacking every single lap. So even if you miss your marker by 1 or 2 or maybe 5 or 10 meters, well, you've watched Hugo Olsen, you know exactly what happens then.
And you can see the result of that damage as he goes over that 90-degree left curb. He bounces the car over. But while we were watching that replay, another incident on track. We'll take a look at this one quickly, Sumo, because something has happened to Stefan Petrad, unfortunately. Here you can see going down in turn number 1. It's looking good, and he's managed to lose it all by himself and spin it off into that grass, able to gather it up. But as a result, the Team Heiskenveld driver now down into P number 12.
Well, I'm going to quote Spider-Man over here. With great power comes great responsibility. And your right throttle foot, it's got a whole lot of responsibility.
Ooh.
So many horsepower. Ooh, that was naughty, wasn't it?
Yeah. Let's take a look on board with Richard Craig there, because I do believe there was some significant contact. In fact, here we come. Here's the onboard replay. You can see down into turn number 1, Petrat just tries to close off the door, and Craig doesn't brake in time, and I do believe that maybe Petrat may have had some rear suspension damage there.
Yeah, he just got rammed in the back by Richard Craig getting into turn 1. That and the right throttle just being a bit too aggressive and early on with it. That just led to the most bizarre spin I've ever seen heading into turn 1. You see cars spin off, but you don't see them veer off violently to the right-hand side. And another thing that I've noticed, Arjun, all the drivers are weaving like crazy here.
Yeah, they really, really are. We took one more look from the aerial look there, and Petrat, in fact, down onto pit lane, and I do believe that might be the end of his race right now. He's still on there, 19 seconds stationary in the box. He's about to go a lap down as we watch Henry Bennett in second place come across the line once again. 29 laps complete in the 64 lap affair, and Sumo, you seem to have seen something about Olsen's wing.
Yep, there's something about Hugo Olsen's wing that's really irritating my OCD, inner OCD or whatever, but it looks quite a bit like the 2007-8 McLaren car with those weird wings on the middle of the car. Aesthetically, well, it looks pretty horrible. It doesn't really do the job for you as well. For the McLaren car back in the Formula 1 days, it used to provide the air towards the big rear spoiler. This, it just kills off the rear airflow. In fact, in real life, it would just throw all the air directly onto the tires, and it would wear them out under the pressure of the air even further. Everything can just be compounding up for Hugo Olsen right now, and look at that. He's losing time like anything pretty much. Hugo Olsen is just struggling at this stage. Being a quality driver, he's still able to stick around within a gap of around 3 to 4 odd seconds, but as the laps go by, he'll be getting ever so slower then.
And yeah, you take a look now at this gap between the top 4. Olsen's starting to drop off. He's done a good job to be able to hang on to the leading 3 cars in this first few laps since he took the damage. But look at Crane, the Canadian, slowly building up the gap. 1 second between Crane and Bennett. And interesting here to note, Sumo, I mentioned it off the top of the broadcast, Henry Bennett, the defending IndyCar iRacing Series champion, he is here today. We haven't really seen him much this season, but not having the smoothest run of it all. This would be the performance that Crane would have wanted to see. As in fact, there's now an incident in the back. Let's go and take a look at it. Andreas Seek, he stopped in turn number 1. Turn number 1 has really become the action spot, and you can take a look at the damage as well. That left side part of the car completely off. Here comes the replay.
That looks like a properly raw car. Okay, wait for the punch. It's going to come somewhere around here. At the first turn,
oh no,
gets knocked up from behind. And it's a heavy crash. Oh, dearie me. Well, he got stuck up in the middle of the road. You naturally expect someone to come by. And that corner is so tight on the middle part that someone's just going to come by and ram you in the back. That car looks so sorry. I wish I never see a real Indy car in that state, because that just looks terrible on the eye.
Yeah, there's the initial contact, the second instance of a car getting hit under braking, and unfortunately Rashad Craig is the unfortunate party this time, coming across the scene of the accident, making contact with Andreas Seek, and for Eek, this is going to be the end of his battle for number 4 in the championship. Manzardo continues to apply pressure on Bennett in front of him, as we now take a look once again at the battle in the top 4. We'll take a look quickly then at your top 8 drivers as they stand. It is Adam Crane who leads by 1.5 seconds from Henry Bennett in the number 1 car. Then you've got Cesar Manzardo a further 7/10 behind, with Hugo Olsen doing a very good job to hang on to this top 3 battle despite that front wing damage. However, the thing that he's going to be watching out for is the gap to David Soranzo behind. Just 3 seconds between 4th and 5th. And for Olsen, who's going to need a 5-second front wing change, that will be him slipping back into 5th place. You then look at Lester Hjorkak, who was involved in that incident with Andreas Seek into turn number 1. And then you've got Connie Naslin and Vilda Wallen, the 2 teammates who are starting to scrap it out. So there is the top 8 runners in your field right now. And there you'll take a look at Rashad Craig coming off the pit lane. He's going to get out just in front of some of these leading drivers as they come. And hopefully, as we now look at the static shot through turn number 1, you'll see all 4 of your all 4 of these front-running drivers able to get through cleanly. It's been an interesting half of this first half of the race, Sumo. And we now head into the second half of the race with Adam Crane firmly in control.
If you're Rashad Craig exiting the pit lane, you will just be thinking, no, I might as well just go slower then. Because if you mess up with these guys, they're going to have a properly heavy word with you at the end of this race. Because every single one of them has a lot to gain. In fact, the thing with Bennett right now, it reminds me of a phrase from the world of wrestling. In fact, Ric Flair once said, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And Adam Crane right now is beating the former champion fair, square and clean. 33 laps in, we're pretty much halfway into this race, and we still have a long way to go. So for Crane, he still has to defend quite a bit from the likes of Bennett, and then we've got Hugo Olsen at behind too. So what can we expect here then? Can we see Bennett go hard and get in that position in? For now, he's got a defend from Cesar Manzardo coming in the back.
But when you mention Ric Flair, Sumo, the only thing I can really think of is woo!
Exactly.
And we talk about fast laps right now. Cesar Manzardo, that last time around with the fastest lap of today's race, a 1:11.336. So really starting to apply the pressure. We'll take a look back at Hugo Olsen with that damage though. His last lap time, a 1:12.373. And well, what does that mean for him in this battle for 4th and 5th with David Soranzo? There you can see the lap gaps. So as Olsen starts to get dropped by the cars in front of him, he's going to increasingly have more dirty air than slipstream effect happening to his car. He is going to start being reeled in by the Frenchman behind, and you can see him through this left-right chicane really struggling with the car now. I would have to assume, Sumo, he's going to be coming in at the earliest opportunity, which might even be in just 8 laps time or so.
And if you're Hugo Olsen, you just have to push like an absolute maniac right here, because you know for a fact, when you come into the pits, not only do you have to take your tyres and your fuel, X, Y, Z, all the regular stuff, but iRacing will forcibly make you sit back and say, Hugo, my friend, you've got damage on your car. You want me to repair it? In fact, not even asking, I'm telling you to do that. And so naturally his pit stop will be much longer, and he will just end up losing a lot more time. So that final stint from Hugo Olsen could be critical to his championship. And from the looks of things, he's on losing end, but there is a big battle on the way, Arjuna, heading into turn 1.
And its teammates, Vilda Wallen has managed to get past Connie Naslin. No issues here from any teammates hitting each other. We've seen that recently on the iRacing Esports Network in some other series. Guillaume Brisset has a great shot of that, and he's going to try and get the move done on Naslund now. A bold look to the inside, nothing doing there. And Wallen is looking at this in his rearview mirrors, gaggling with delight. He's slowly pulling away from his teammate now in front of him. But interesting to note here, Sumo, Wildewall and Connie Naslund, they've been switching positions a little bit throughout this race right now. Those Three Crowns racing machines looking very good in the blue and yellow.
Yeah, but all suits the color. It's looking fantastic, to be honest with you. It's just a very pleasing color on the eye. And just that simplicity on livery is what you look for in a racing car. And they've got exactly that. So the looks are assured, for sure. What about the pace then? Well, from the looks of things, everything just seems to be fine in the midfield. And these two guys have been fighting it out for pretty much the entire season as long as I can remember. So they know how each other races. They know exactly how to deal with it. And now, here comes the move then into turn one. The draft is heavy here.
And Brisset is going to look to the inside, and he's going to get it done under braking now. So Naslund down 2 positions in 2 laps. I wonder if he's got a little bit of damage to that car now, because Wildewallen has really pulled out. Already 1.5 seconds between the 7th and 8th cars on the track right now. And there you can see the gap to Brisset as Naslund goes a little bit wide in towards this first hairpin. As I said, one of the most awful sections of track on any track in the world. I will have a bet that not many people can come up with a worse section of track, Sumo. It really is a excruciating corner. It goes on for so long. You're waiting for the car to just be able to attack the corner in many ways. Fortunately, in the newest configuration of this Indy road course, you get to bypass that part of the track completely.
I'm just wondering what circuit was that I detested absolutely so much when I was racing on my simulator yesterday night. I just simply cannot seem to remember. But there are worse, Arjuna. There are sections of circuit that make you completely cringe and say, oh man, couldn't they have done a better job with that? In fact, here's one. There's one on, not on the iRacing service, but they're still on multiple other simulators. Sochi, the entire circuit.
Oh no.
90-degree corner galore. In fact, even after the backstretch right in Indianapolis, there's another section. There's this dreadful little tight left-hand corner that has barely any room to do anything. This one right here, if you make a mistake, this particular left-hander, there's barely anywhere to go. And you have to turn so quickly. And if you miss that one, it is so easy to do. You end up on the grass and you just end up being a low-key column McRae, a budget column McRae, that's what I'm going to call it. Just trying to slide your car and getting back on the track. It annoys me so much, but, well, could be worse.
That's true. It could be worse. You always have to have that positive outlook on everything. And of course, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the broadcast, the iRacing.com staff members were prepared to go and scan this latest incarnation of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway just a few months ago. And unfortunately, you know, as a result of the work from home lockdown that has seen a lot of us stuck indoors for so long, that trip had to be rescheduled. And hopefully we can see that happening in the next 12 months or so. However, Sumo, something that was announced very recently to be coming to the iRacing.com service in its full beauty, if you will, is the long-awaited release of the Long Beach Street Track. It was in the service for a long time as a technical track, missing a lot of the 3D artwork on the outside of the track. And just last night, Aussie Greg Hill released the first snapshot of the track, and in its final form, as it's going to be, as it is hopefully approaching a very soon release date, maybe in the first half of next year. We look at the 2021 NTT IndyCar Series schedule as well, and the number of ovals has decreased in the real world as well, and it's good to be able to finally have Long Beach on the service in its full form.
Absolutely. When Greg Hill posted that tweet up yesterday night, I was just jumping on the edge of my seat. I'd seen Long Beach as a test track with all the development phases going on, and you never quite seem to appreciate the beauty of it until you see it as it's supposed to be, with all the 3D artwork done, the track fully up and ready, and the snapshot, the picture that he posted, oh my goodness me, it got me really excited. I immediately sat up on my chair and thought, wow, this is going to be something rather fun. That is when, in fact, we can actually do the entire racing calendar, the IndyCar calendar, I beg your pardon, and have a realistic IndyCar championship with all the real-world circuits available as well. I don't think we're going to have the Music City circuit in as soon as we think it's going to come on iRacing, but let's hope for the best. But nevertheless, it slightly disappoints me to see less ovals. I mean, as an IndyCar fan, you want to see more diversity. You want to see more of every single thing. So more short ovals, longer ones, more straight races as well. And from the last couple of years, IndyCar has gravitated more towards road courses. But that's what it is. They've got a reason for doing that. But let's hope for the best in a couple of years' time. We hopefully should be seeing more of these glorious ovals. But for now, I guess it's road courses for us.
It is indeed, and just to correct you, Sumo, I don't have to do this often, but unfortunately, we're still missing a few of the street courses in the iRacing service.
Yeah.
Still missing the likes of, St. Pete, Toronto.
St. Pete, yes.
I'm missing one more that one of my teammates lives very close by. Portland, that's the one. So there's 3 off the top of my head I can think of, but we're getting much closer to having the full complement of IndyCar tracks, and I have very similar emotions to you, to be honest. I grew up as an F1 fan rather than IndyCar. In fact, my interest in this series developed as a result of racing the car in this iRacing.com service as well. And as someone who came from that road background, that F1 background, I've really come to like these ovals a lot more. And it's a bit disappointing, obviously, to not have more than 4 of them in next season's schedule. However, it's going to be interesting to see Texas in the month of May. So very interesting to see that in the build-up to next year's Indy 500. Let's ride on board, though, with Cesar Manzardo once again as he heads the wrong way down this famed Brickyard. It's such a famous track, Sumo, and the one thing that I didn't actually even know until very recently is that there's a golf course in the infield here. 14 holes lie outside the track, but then there are 4 holes all residing in the infield section.
Wait, are you kidding me? Is that really it? Wait. I knew about the lake, I knew about the pit and all the parties that you have, but I never had any clue about having a golf course inside a racing circuit. Well, I spoke about the diversity of ovals and what you can do with such racetracks on the broader perspective. Here's a clear-cut example. You can have a rock concert, you can have a pit, you can have an adventure park as such that they have in the Indy 500 weekend as well. You can even have a golf course and a lake. So what's next? What are we missing next? Perhaps we can have a football match inside the infield as well. Who knows?
Yeah, well, there's plenty of space for all of those fans. About 400,000 is the capacity of IMS once you open up the infield as well. And I must say, Sumo, as someone who is relatively inexperienced in golf, I used to play a lot more as a kid, and I'm starting once again now to pick it up again. I've heard very good things about this, the Indianapolis golf course, and I've got to say, a bucket list item for me now is going to be going to the Indy 500 and then playing that course maybe in the days afterwards. It's just a very interesting idea to be playing golf where just a few days before you watch these beasts of a car driving at 220 miles an hour.
And if you've got a track day when you're playing golf, well, you've got a beautiful little soundtrack to listen to as well as you try and putt your way up into the hole. But yeah, it's amazing. That's what the ovals are for. You can use them and reuse them for so many different purposes. I mean, it's just amazing. And if you look at Daytona, you've got so many different cars racing at Daytona. You've got small sports cars, you've got NASCARs racing there, big sports cars, DPIs, GT3s, GTEs, you name it, and you've got everything. At Indianapolis, well, they just take things one step further. But can Hugo Olsen get a hole-in-one this time, Arjuna? That's the big question that we're going to ask, because we're reaching the second pit window rather soon as well, and it could just mean that this man right here has to go in for an excruciatingly longer pit stop now.
Yeah, we saw the gaps as they were falling, and in fact, that's why I wanted to show Hugo Olsen, who dives onto pit lane. The pit window is officially open, and he's now going to be stationary an extra 5 seconds, blocking up the braking on the entry into the pit lane. Let's hope he got under the speed limit as well. That's been a concern for many, many drivers here today, trying not to speed on that very tricky pit entry. And someone in our YouTube chat is just wondering about the entry requirements for this race. This is just the official IndyCar iRacing Series. This series started in April. It's 15 rounds of this championship, as the IndyCar 2020 season had a slight change of schedule due to everything that was going on. Usually, the series tries to align as closely as possible with the real series. Now, these are the top IndyCar drivers in the service. Now, what does that mean? They're the IndyCar drivers with the top I rating that signed up for this race. And right now, we're looking at the leader, Adam Crane, as he tries to grab the second ever IndyCar iRacing Series Championship. Hugo Olsen is back onto the track right now. His pit lane time, actually, Sumo, 9.1 seconds. So a very interesting stop there. Let's go and actually take a look at him right now. There you can see that damage has been repaired, but a short stop for the Swede. I wonder if potentially we just missed something, and sometimes the iRacing servers get a little bit confused. Maybe Olsen didn't have as much damage as we were thinking.
Yeah, of course the Dallara IR18 does not really have the latest damage model come into this one as well. So sometimes the damage can seem bigger than it actually is. And when the new damage model comes in, things will be a lot more realistic. All the cosmetism that we see right now will go away. And for Hugo Olsen, that's a blessing in disguise. He may be looking at his front wing early on and thinking, oh goodness me, that's my championship gone, isn't it? And now he just sees a big ray of opportunity. Who knows, we can have a straight fight towards the end, but that won't happen if Adam Crane keeps on driving the way he has been. And boy, he has just been on fire. Of course, VRS is known for their talent and the way they develop their setups and their cars, and he's just putting that to perspective right here in this race.
And we take a look at another incident, unfortunately, for Matthias Kraus. Once again on his outlap, just proving that cold tires are so very tricky. And that's something that all of the leading drivers are going to have to deal with, as Adam Crane, the first of your leaders, down onto pit road. Let's see what happens here with his pit stop and just how long it is. Now, of course, Hugo Olsen with a 9.1 second stop. He lost 42 seconds in the pit lane. But as Crane works his way down in towards his box, this is the money stop. This is the stop that could win him the championship. He's all the way down at the end of the pit lane, though, and he's finally going to be able to get into the box. Up onto the jacks goes the car. You can see him already spinning those rear tires, ready to get underway once again. What's the stop going to be? 7 seconds. 8 seconds is the time. 9.7 seconds, in fact. So fortunately for Hugo Olsen, he's not going to lose as much time to these leading contenders as we thought. Crane back onto the track, and he's got a clean air around him. Aaron Roofs is just a second behind him, a lapped car. He does have another lapped car in front of him that he's going to have to deal with. That's Stefan Petrak a few seconds up the road, as David Soranzo from third place in the championship has binned it off pit lane. We talk about cold tires being so tricky. Well, the Frenchman who led this championship just 3 rounds ago has been caught out. There goes Olsen around the outside, so Olsen able to hold on to the position. And then as he tries to just get up to speed, Soranzo pushing a little bit too hard, loops the car around, and fortunately there, Sumo once again able to get underway in short order.
Yeah, he thankfully did not lose as much time as he potentially could have, but it's the same thing. Single-seater cars, no traction control. As the driver, you are the traction control. You've got to manage it all by yourself. And in that particular instance, it just did not work out for him. The power of the car just outweighed the temptation to go hard on the throttle, and the result, it's right here for all to see. That's what happens. You've got to stay easy, you've got to stay calm. It's tantalizing, with these Indy cars, especially after a pit stop. You want to get close, you want to stop losing the gap, and sometimes you get too eager, and that happens.
And something else just to note, Sumo, while we were watching Crane down on pit lane, Manzardo has managed to leapfrog Bennett to get out in front once again, and I'm expecting both of these cars down on pit lane. In fact, Bennett's able to go 1 additional lap longer, so Manzardo down onto the pit speed limit as he enters the pit lane. No lockups for him as he looks to try and secure 4th place in this championship. But Bennett going to lead another lap as he goes down in towards turn number 1. Bottom right hand corner of your screen, there you can see all the cars as they make their way around the track. Now let's jump to the number 8, Adam Crane. He's going to be trying to get out back in front of Cesar Manzardo. Manzardo still making his way down pit lane, not yet at his box. He will have that first box on pit lane. That pole position attributes you that perfect pit stall. And Manzardo finally down in the lane. 4 seconds stationary already as Crane comes around the final turn. He's already up to racing speed as Manzardo gets off pit lane. There's the number 3 car merging its way back onto the track. And there goes Crane In fact, I'm just trying to look at my screen right now. I think that track map is a little bit confused. It looks like Manzato is actually... Manzato has had his own issue in turn number 1. Oh my word, what drama. Manzato manages to get out in front for just a second and then manages to lose it all by himself. We're going to have to get a replay of that one, Sugal.
Oh, it's all queuing up here. Cue up the drum roll because the drama is about to start right now. Manzato comes out cleanly, watches Crane right behind, says, okie dokie, I've got a bit of a gap. Not anymore.
And he was in a very strong position. The same incident we just saw with David Soranzo, the Frenchman. Let's jump back to the live pictures, though, as Henry Bennett is going to work his way on one more lap. So Bennett doing a fantastic job on the fuel saving. The gap now up to 38 seconds to Crane, though. He's going to struggle in pit lane, I do believe, to get out back in front. We're seeing average pit stop times for most of these drivers, Sumo, including that time in the lane. We'll take a look at the time for Adam Crane, 43 seconds. So with the gap to your leader at 38 seconds and ticking right now, even with a few laps less fuel for Bennett, I do believe he's going to come out in maybe third position in this one.
Absolutely. So Bennett towards the end needs to have a monster final stint if he wants to get ahead and win this particular race. He's been trying to bank on going one lap longer since the very beginning of this race. It will be now when all of that has to pay off with a tremendous drive towards the end. Can he get it done? Can he extract that extra bit of performance from him? We've got not a lot of time to find the answers to that. And for Hugo Olsen now then, it's a bit of a reincarnation for Hugo Olsen. Since he's got that damage repaired, he's seen an extra bit of pace, and here comes Bennett then.
So let's take a look at Bennett on pit lane. Once again, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We'll hope the track map is going to stay up to date this time around, as Bennett's going to stop in that pit stall. Up on the jacks he goes. The number 1 machine, the strongest driver in this field by regards of iRating, is going to drop off the jacks. A fairly short stop for him there, 8.4 seconds, and he might have this one in the bag. There you can see all the other cars as they make their way down the pit lane. Bennett has managed to leapfrog them all up into the race lead, and last season's defending champion of this series is going to try and hold on here. As you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Sumo, as in the immortal words of Ric Flair, if you want to take the champion's belt, you have to beat him. It's all on Adam Crane right now. Does he want to try and get the pass done on track?
And he's got a bit of an advantage early on in the next couple of laps because Bennett will have slightly colder tyres. Adam Crane, his tyres are fresh, they are ready, they're all primed up to go in and make that move. But the thing is, that window shuts down ever so quickly, and with another car right between them, it seems like Bennett has just got it all jumped up, because in the next couple of laps, when his tyres are warmed up, the playing field will be leveled and Crane has to go in, get his hands dirty and get it done the hard way around.
So we can take a look at that gap, 1.7 seconds, as there goes Stefan Petrak down onto pit lane. So clean air now for Crane as he tries to reel in last season champion. There goes Bennett to the inside, trying to just break the toe. 1.5 seconds. We've got 15 laps to go here, Sumo. This is looking to be a very exciting finale to this one. If you're Crane, though, how do you balance that need to want to try and beat Bennett here to get the race win versus that reality that finishing in front of Olsen in this one will all but likely secure the title for the Canadian?
Well, knowing Adam Crane, frankly, he'll be a lot more tranquil about this. He'll be a lot more calm and composed while making the decision. So naturally, I think it's going to be more aligned towards keeping the position on the track as is and letting Henry Bennett do his own job. Because if you cast your mind back to the point standings, Crane does not need to win this race. All he needs to do is finish 3 positions ahead of Hugo Olsen, and that will be that. And right now, he is 2 positions ahead. In fact, the thing is, if he finishes 3 positions behind Hugo Olsen, he'll be losing by 1 point. So everything is nice, clean, and secure for Adam Crane right now. So for him, just keep on doing what you're doing. He's a smart driver. He knows the risks involved. He knows the implications. I think he'll just keep it clean. He'll just keep it on the track and enjoy Indianapolis Motor Speedway as it's supposed to be, because although we have that terrible little hairpin, it still is quite a fun track to drive on in these cars.
It is indeed, and Cesar Manzato in third position though, is not going to give this one easy. Fastest lap around the last time, a 1:11.215. So ratcheting up the pace now as he looks to try and close in on second place. He's got Hugo Olsen trying to get up as well. Olsen will see Crane in front and know there is a potential here to try and leapfrog and gain a few more points and try and just close that gap in the championship. But like you say, Sumo, Crane in a very comfortable position. Someone not so comfortable, unfortunately, Stefan Petrat, who's had another issue coming down onto the Holman straight. Well, let's take a look at this one for the Team Heskenveld driver. It's been fairly torrid for him, running up in that top 5 for much of the race, using a little bit too much of that inside curve. Unfortunately able to get it back around without encountering any of the lead traffic that he was just with, Subel.
Oh, crikey, Stefan Petrat, he's just had a nightmare of a day. Incident after incident after incident. I'm sure he'll go back, realise the mistakes that he's made, and he'll practice and come back on that. Because, of course, he's a highly professional driver who knows he wants to get up and improve, but right now, could it get worse? I think it can. There's still far more that can go wrong here.
There is indeed, and you take a look at, once again, bottom right-hand corner, you'll see there are a few lapped cars here to deal with. Bennett is just about to get onto the back of the number 16 Aaron Roos, who it does appear is going to get to the inside on the Holman straight. Let Bennett through. Is the rest of your field also going to make their way through as well? Very well done. Very respectful driving from Roos there. Able to just let them all go, and there you can see at the back of his shot, Roos doing a very good job there, Sumo. I'm sure Crane is super happy because Cesar Manzato now just half a second behind, and this was the battle we saw for the race lead early on in this one. Manzato will know that this is his final opportunity potentially to try and make the move happen.
And I'm pretty sure that Crane will defend it, but he won't defend it as hard as he possibly can. Remember, he does not have to fight for this. Even if he does finish behind Manzato, he still wins the championship. But this is where the animal instincts of a racing driver kick in. As a racing driver, you always want to be up ahead. Be it in a Mazda MX-5, be it in a DPI, be it in a Formula 1 car, or even a virtual Indy car. Everywhere, drivers are the same. They want to be the first person on the track. Right now, if Crane just loses his focus and he starts to focus more on the short-term battle, he could end up losing the bigger prize, and that is the championship. I'm sure he won't do that, but that's still a real possibility that could be lurking in the back.
And Bennett has already pulled out a further second at this point now. The gap up to 2.5 between first and second. So Crane is all in his mirrors as look at Olsen. Olsen is trying to get up all the way onto the back of Manzato as well. So there could be a 3-wide potential here. We've seen it on the oval configuration in the past. I wonder if we're going to see that once again here in the road configuration. A little bit more difficult with the amount of downforce these cars are carrying. But look at the run that Olsen is getting right now. All the way onto the rear of Cesar Manzato as they cross the yard of bricks once again down into turn number 1. Speeds in excess of 290 kilometers an hour. A fastest lap of the race for the Swede, a 1:11.153, but it's not enough to try and get alongside Manzato. But Manzato goes wide. Manzato loses the rear end of the car, and Manzato has now fallen to 4th position from pole. What a disaster for Cesar Manzato, and he's now got a lot of work to do as we close in on 10 to go.
Oh, drama, oh drama, oh drama, oh drama, everywhere for Cesar Manzato. He began with the intent of a galloping horse trying to win this race, but then he just seems to be limping back home, losing positions like a rock falling off a mountain. What's happening to Cesar? Perhaps just pushing too hard, I suppose.
Pushing hard, wanting to get second place. He had a fantastic lap for the pole position, but right now, 4th position, not going to even have that podium result to show for what has been a very solid performance from Manzato. He's had some strong showings this season, but unfortunately not able to convert that into consistent hopefuls scrapping it out on the track.
This is perfect. This is what it's all meant to be about. All the championship contenders gunning out against each other and going for a straight up dogfight. I'm loving this.
To come down through turn number 1 once again. Olsen's going to have a look to the inside. He's a little too far back, so nothing's doing in that situation. All the while, Bennett looking in his rearview mirror and smiling home. He hasn't been able to really defend his title with the amount of consistent races, as Olsen's got a big issue. Olsen almost loses the rear end as well. And now Olsen's going to drop to 4th position as he tries to defend from Manzardo. Manzardo's going to be very respectful there, Sumo. He knows that this is a battle for the championship in front, and he does not want to get involved.
Oh dearie me, butterfingers everywhere. All the championship contenders are slipping up and making mistakes that you normally would not see them making now. Hugo Olsen had one shot, one chance, one clear opportunity to get the jump on Adam Crane. It still would not have been enough. But boy, he's lost it now. Manzardo's right here.
Yeah, 9 laps ago. It'll become 8 as Bennett crosses the line once again, and the gap between 3rd and 2nd place, 1.8 seconds. So the Swede Olsen was pushing for all his worth, trying to close up the gap, and now he's got Manzardo behind him. Let's go ahead and try and take a look at that incident or rather the incident that Olsen has. There you can see just getting very loose. And we'll try and get an onboard there from Manzardo, who did a good job, Sumo, not to run into the back end of Olsen in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. Manzardo doing a smart job in that case. He could very well have punted him behind. Oh, look at the reactions. Just kept his steering wheel as straight as possible. Had he turned it, well, we would have seen lots of carnage, debris, and possibly a yellow IndyCar flying around there.
And as you watch on that onboard with Manzardo, what happened was Olsen got his left side tires into the grass, and that got his car loose. He's able to gather it up for just a moment, then had to save it once again as he tried to apply the power. And there you could see the strong defensive move to try and get back into the 3rd position. Let's jump back to the live pictures though, because Olsen is having to defend from Manzardo behind him now. Only this battle on track that we're going to take a look at now, because for Olsen, this is such an unfortunate turn of events, Sumo. He was fighting back that damage that he had got trying to go around the outside of Adam Crane. We thought that was the end of his race, but now as Manzardo's going to try and take a look to the inside, for Olsen, he's just going to give the position up here, I think, potentially. No, he might look to hold it around the outside once again. Is he going to be able to get it slowed down in time? And he is this time. Fortunately for Olsen, no mirror image of that last incident, but like I was saying, a very strong recovery drive for the Swede, and almost able to get out in front of Crane for a moment, and unfortunately now looking like it's going to be the end of his title hopes.
It is going to be the end of his title hopes right here with 7 laps to go. But that right there, folks, is Hugo Olsen. He's worked for this comeback. He had a damaged car, fell behind, had a few mistakes. But if there's anything you know about Hugo Olsen, he will not let go of that position with such relative ease. If you want a position from Hugo Olsen, oh, you've got to get your hands dirty and fight for it. And right now, he still keeps it rather clean. But as you mentioned early on, Arjuna, Crane is disappearing in the distance, literally and figuratively. The championship is running away, and Crane right now, he may be in 2nd place, but he may just have the broadest smile in the world.
And we must, of course, mention, Sumo, this is not the only race in the IndyCar iRacing series. This is an iRacing official series, which means that there are multiple opportunities for all of these drivers to compete. Now, this is one of the more popular time slots that we have this Friday afternoon or evening, depending on how you look at it. But we have 2 races on Saturday, 2 races on Sunday, while Crane is putting himself in a very strong position by finishing in front of Olsen here today. There is still the potential that Saturday or Sunday could see one of these drivers swoop back in, get that potential win and the championship points they need to really change the order. And obviously, we won't be able to talk about that. We can only talk about what we're seeing on the track right now.
Exactly, what we're seeing on track right now is just about good enough, if not even better, because now we've got all the championship contenders literally very close to each other, all in a straight up dogfight. In fact, if anything has to happen, it's all on the driver right now. What can you extract from deep down inside? Do you have the extra pace? Tell me what though, Cesar Manzardo just seems to be developing the gap of his life, and he disappeared for a second. Little worried, he's right behind Hugo Olsen right now then.
And he's not as close this time around. Olsen's managed to just check out a little bit. The gap still to Crane, 2 seconds. So for the Swede Olsen, 5 laps to go. 5 laps to try and mount a charge here for the win, for the championship that they fought so hard for. This is the 15th and final round. But for the Canadian Adam Crane in front for Satellite Racing, we talk about that partnership with VRS really maybe bearing fruit. I know that Crane has put a lot of time and effort into this season so far. He's not always had the teammate support that he may have wanted. However, doing a very good job out in second place right now. We continue to watch this battle for third and fourth. There are other battles happening on track. Phil DeWallen and Gia Brissett scrapping it out for 7th place right now. We've got Connie and Aslan trying to charge up past Carlos Duterte for 9th place as well. So there is still some fighting. We had a slightly smaller field coming into this race. 18 cars took to the grid today. Unfortunately, we've had 3 retirements from this race. Robin Glennick's retiring with a very early incident. Then Anna Giorfi and Andreas Eek as well. Your other 2 retirements here today. And now 4 laps to go. The gaps out front are all kind of stabilizing, I would say, at this point, Sumil. I talked about very early on that mentality of the driver being very important. What do you think about the performance from Olsen? Not in the driving sense, but more the mental sense. He pushed very hard to try and make the move stick early on the race. That caused some damage that he then had to fight back from. But a very strong performance to be able to fight back from that kind of damage and be up here in that 3rd and final podium position.
That's what I normally like from a good racing driver, the ability to bounce back. Leading from the front is one particular skill, dominating and controlling the strength of the field. But fighting back from incidents like this, that is when you see a true test of character. And for Hugo Olsen, it's been a very characterful drive, a very masterful one. A couple of mistakes here and there. The important point is he did not let go, he did not give up. Can he hold on to it in the very same way from the charging Cesar Manzano from the back? Well, from the looks of things, Hugo Olsen has got it all covered. If he drives the way he has been doing so far, with the same intent, I think he's got it in the bag.
And we've got now about 3 laps to go, I believe. Henry Bennett crosses the line one more time. Bennett has had a very strong drive in his own regard. He may not have qualified out front and run away with this like we saw Adam Blocker do last time out at Laguna Seca. But for Bennett, it was that pit strategy that was so important. Coming out 1.5 seconds clear of the Canadian Crane, and now the gap 2.5 seconds as Manzano continues to have some internet issues of his own. But for Bennett to come back into the series and show his performance as well, a very strong drive, as now Olsen has got some lap traffic in front of him. This is going to be interesting as they head their way to one of the slower corners on track. Through the left, now through the right, setting up for this 90-degree corner where you want to use as much of that inside curb as you can. That is the number 18 car, Matthias Kraus, who's just going to go wide. But what happened there? Olsen got checked up majorly. And now Manzano is going to be trying with that long run down through the oval. And back onto the oval midway through the short chute. Now through what is the oval turn number 1. He's still 0.4 of a second behind here, Sumo. I think he's a little bit too far back to make something work. That might have been his one opportunity, because I'm just looking at the track map right now. These top 4 drivers aren't going to come across any more traffic for the rest of this race.
Well, if he gets a god lap in, he could have a chance. Oh, not a god lap, just a godly mistake by Hugo Olsen right there. And before you know it, at the blink of an eye, Cesar Manzano is right there in the mirror. Let's go then. 2 laps to go. This is where it's all on the line. It's a battle for position. It's a battle for pride. Who's going to be the one with their nose of a hair on the finish line? I'm buzzing. I can't wait to see how this goes.
Oh, my leg is bouncing up and down right now, Sumo. I cannot wait for this final lap of the IndyCar iRacing Series. The final lap that we're going to be broadcasting for you this season as well. We started at round number 4, a little bit late with that round at Detroit from Belle Isle, but what a treat it has been. What a journey since that round number 4. We visited some of the most famous ovals on the track as well. And now, what a place to finish. Speedway, Indiana, down the back straight for the penultimate time Cesar Manzardo in that draft. You can see him sucking up all the way to Hugo Olsen. Olsen's going to defend the inside here, down in towards turn number 1. What's going to happen? Is he going to be able to outbrake Manzardo? He is indeed. He's going to close off the gap, but that gets him a little bit wide for turn 2. He is able to hold on once again. Now they work their way into turn 4. Manzardo looks to the inside for just a second, but that move was never on as Olsen once again very loose. Oh my word, Sumo. This is kicking off right now. You'd forget that this is the last lap of the race, and both of these drivers still want to finish on the podium.
It's been just like that from lap number 1, and that is why I love the iRacing IndyCar Series. I'm so sad to see it go, but it just seems like Hugo Olsen is cracking under the pressure, Arjuna. Final few corners.
They head through the slow section once again. Henry Bennett, by the way, on his way to taking another victory here in official IndyCar competition. We'll take a look then as Bennett, as he comes around the short chute once again. There you can see Crane in the background, but it is Henry Bennett, the Brit, in his British Racing Green number 1, the Dallara IR18 for Powerslide Motorsports, who's going to take home the win. And there you can see for third place, they're side by side. Who's going to take it? Manzardo appears to be a nose ahead. Oh, we're going to have to look at that one on the replay in just a few seconds, but my word, Sumil, what a finish to this 64-lap affair.
Take a deep breath and release. This is how you end the championship. Not a dull moment in sight when IndyCar rolls around to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Be it on the oval, be it on the road course. This was mind-blowing. Who got it in the end? I don't know who got it in the end, Arjuna. Who got that position? I don't know. It's fantastic.
I have no idea. So what we're going to do is take a look at this whole final lap as these two scrapped it out for that final podium place. There was that small mistake for the Swede as they headed down into this double hairpin section. Then another mistake going a little bit deep into the corner. Manzardo once again just closing the gap. Then they head down the Ullman Straight. This is where you can use as much of that runoff as you want. You can see here, Olsen still ahead as they headed into this slow section, so it was the drive off the final corner that made a difference. Here we go, the 90-degree left, using as much of that inside curb as you can. Olsen got a little bit shaky there. You could see the rear end stepping around, and look at Manzardo as Olsen once again very twitchy on the power as they run down back to the oval once again. And here it is. Here's going to be the photo finish. I do believe, Sumil, we'll take a look at the results in just a second, but I believe it was Manzardo by half a tenth of a second who got it. There you can see Manzardo clearly in front.
Wow.
Manages to recover that one, but a fight all the way to the end.
He just got a fantastic run off the oval and just rocketed it off like a jet and got it in the end. But Bennett, oh boy, the champion wins once again, but sadly no big trophy to take home. That one, from the looks of things, is going home to Adam Crane.
And let's go ahead and take a look then at the race results after 64 of the most incredible laps here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was Henry Bennett for Powerslide Motorsports, last year's winner here in the IndyCar iRacing Series, comes back for this final race of the season. In fact, before we take a look at these results, let's go ahead and show you the action on track. Henry Bennett and Adam Crane both doing their donuts. The past and the present champions celebrating together, Sumo. What a picture.
Symbolic. That's the only word that comes to mind. Symbolic.
Well, there you can see they continue to celebrate in the background. Let's go ahead and bring up the race results once again then as they continue to do their donuts by the yard of bricks. Adam Crane secures his first ever IndyCar iRacing Series championship by coming in second place and beating his championship contender Hugo Olsen, who was pipped at the line by Cesar Manzardo, who won the pole position and had a tough race of his own. David Soranzo came into this race in third position in the championship, but unfortunately a difficult race for him has dropped him back into the fifth place here, 23 seconds behind, and we'll see what that means for his championship standings later on. The rest of your field, Lester Hurokak, Vilda Wallen, Guillaume Brissett, Carlos Dotero, and Connie Naslund on the edge of your top 10. Let's take a look at the rest of your cars who all finished at least one lap down. It was Matthias Kraus, Eric Winter, Richard Craig, Stefan Petrat, who it was a very difficult day for in the Team Heiskensveld number 4. And you got Aaron Roofs, Andreas Eek, Anna Giorfi and Rob Unglenix, your last finisher here today. Well, Sumal, I think I need just a break before we maybe talk with some of our podium finishers here. We'll be right back in just a few moments with the post-race show here from the IndyCar iRacing Series. Don't go anywhere. Coverage live on the iRacing Esports Network will resume in just a few minutes. For the final time this season, we welcome you to the post-race coverage of the IndyCar iRacing Series and round number 15 from Speedway, Indiana. 64 laps later, a champion has been crowned, and it is Satellite Racing's Adam Crane who takes home the second ever IndyCar iRacing Series championship. And Sumo, before we get into talking with the race finishers in just a few moments, I just wanted to get your thoughts as we continue to just calm ourselves down from what was a crazy 64-lap affair.
Well, I'm just going to say the same thing I said to you when we were on this break. mind-blowing. I think this probably was one of the more entertaining iRacing IndyCar races that I personally have either seen or commentated on. Man, when are we beginning the next season again? Next April, you say, right?
Next April indeed, and it's going to feel like a very, very long wait indeed. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into talking with your race finishers. And let's start with Henry Bennett, who did win today's race in a very dramatic fashion before we get into talking with your championship contenders. Henry, that was an interesting race for us to watch up here in the broadcast booth, and it was the pit strategy that really gave you the win here today. Was that always your thought coming into this one, or did you think you'd have to fight a little bit harder in that final stint of the race?
No, it wasn't a plan at all. Coming into this race, my aim is always to get up front and drive away, but that can't happen with the draft model we have in these cars and the track temp. It just kept everyone packed together at the front. So, I mean, the person that was leading was kind of at a disadvantage, so just burning more fuel, and it let the guys behind save. But yeah, it's really easy to save at Indy Road. A couple of really big braking zones and long straights. So if you got draft, you can save a lot of fuel. And yeah, once I saw the others peel off a lap early, first stint, and then Adam peel off a lot earlier, I knew I had a big advantage and I'd come out ahead.
Well, you mentioned the track temperatures today. We saw a lot of cars being caught out on cold tires today. How difficult was that for you, especially in that last pit stop when Adam Crane came out behind you 1.5 seconds as you came off the pit lane, knowing that he already had those tires up to temp and pressure? Did you feel a little bit more pressure to just push a little bit harder at that point in the race? And how did you avoid becoming victim to the cold tires like some other drivers?
I just took it easy on the outlaps. I mean, it was painful to see the gap fall on the outlaps, but I'm sure Adam and everyone else had the same issue. So yeah, just take it easy, wait for the tyres to come up to temperature, because you're going to lose a lot more time if you spin or go off.
Well, one final question for you, Henry. You did win this series last time around, last year. You were the inaugural series champion. Now you see a new champion being crowned. You had some success in other iRacing series this past year. You won the last series of the IndyCar Fixed Series as well. Are we maybe going to see you coming back next year to try and regain your throne?
It's possible. Yeah, I really love this car, love this series. It's just a shame I haven't had the time to run this series this year. But yeah, I thought I'd come back for the last race to actually hand over the crown, so to speak, and give a bit of backup to Hugo. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to race a bit more in this series next season, especially if they bring up the much anticipated new tyre.
New tyre and damage model on the docket for the IR18. But Henry, congrats on the win here today, and we hope to see you next year.
Thanks, guys.
And so that was Henry Bennett of Powerslide Motorsports. Now let's go ahead and talk to who we expect to be your new series champion, Adam Crane. And Adam, what a race that we got to watch up here in the booth. It must have been stressful for you, knowing that you just had to effectively finish out front in order to secure this championship.
Yeah, definitely wanted to try to resolve the championship based on my own work and not leave it up to anyone else. But Henry there pipped me at the end with the fuel strategy and a little bit better overcut. The undercut, because the track temperature just would not work. Yeah, definitely super happy about coming here in second place, getting some good championship points. I'm not going to cross out the championship just yet, just because there's the potential that some freak SOF over the weekend could happen, but definitely checked a couple boxes, and I'll sleep a little easier tonight for sure.
But it's been a long season indeed. We talked about 15 rounds of this championship across many, many months, Adam. How hard has it been in the last few weeks where you, Hugo, and David Soranzo have all kind of been fighting over who wanted to hold that baton coming into this final one? It was you who led into this final round, but in the last few weeks, both David and Hugo have led as well. How much pressure did you feel coming in as the championship leader in many ways?
Not gonna lie, it's been a little mentally taxing, just thinking about setup options and track conditions and all the other variables that come into a race weekend. And coming in as the championship point leader this week and last week added, I felt, a little bit more pressure on me just to make sure that I can perform against Hugo. Last week was stressful, starting a couple places behind Hugo and finishing a spot behind him. But walking into this week knowing that I really had to take care of business myself definitely helped.
Well, one final question for you, Adam, and I'll ask you about your team, Satellite Racing, and you announced a partnership with VRS a few months ago, and now the announcement of a new partnership with HyperX, which we're going to see debut tomorrow, the brand new livery in the iRacing Podium, all powered by VCO. You don't really have too many teammates who compete regularly here in the IndyCar Series, but how helpful has it been having those satellite team as a backup as you try and compete for this championship?
Definitely huge. Satellite doesn't necessarily have the largest IndyCar program, but there's a lot of crossover information when it relates to other cars. So being able to pull on Sai, especially, really helpful as far as information goes. The IndyCar is a little specific just because it's still running on the older tire model and sort of the older chassis model from when it was released. So still had to do a little bit of work myself, but definitely being able to lean on those other guys and Satellite Racing as a whole, huge improvement I've noticed in my driving and in the setups that are being produced for these races.
Well, Adam, congrats. It's been so fun to watch the racing over the last 10 or 11 weeks we've got to broadcast. Before we let you go and let you begin your early celebrations, like you say, you're probably not going to be celebrating too hard until Sunday and that final race has finished. Anyone else you'd like to thank on the team?
Yeah, champagne is waiting. It's chilling until Sunday night at 11, I guess. Huge thanks to Satellite Racing, obviously, and RaceSpot for putting on these awesome broadcasts. Big shout out to my partner Jess for putting up with me for these last 15 weeks. Huge soldier she's been. And maybe my parents, if they're watch this one, props to them too for putting up with my, just me. But yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys, for the season. Amazing job. Look forward to next year.
Well, that was Adam Crane, who we expect to have won this series as a result of grabbing second place. And Sumo, you're standing by now with Hugo Olsen.
Absolutely. We've got Hugo Olsen right here with us. Hugo, a slightly disappointing race. The championship towards the end, of course, you are ending up losing this one to Adam Crane right now. But on the whole, quite an eventful race for you. And are you really satisfied with this result right here?
Yeah, it's a good result. I'm happy with the season overall, even though I was going for the win. But I tried my hardest, and Adam, it looks like he's going to win.
Well, you certainly tried your hardest. We saw you being in so many fantastic races with so many brilliant drives. What was the comeback like today with that broken front wing to get us such a good result towards the end as well?
I think I tried to make a move around the outside and just broke a bit too late. Bounced across the grass and broke the front wing. So I had to drive the whole second stint with the broken wing, and I pitted as soon as the pit window opened. I just tried to lay down fast laps, and I closed down the gap to Adam and Cesare, but I made one mistake, and maybe just pushing a bit too hard, too many mistakes.
But eventually the result was quite satisfying. I mean, P4 is not a bad one by any means whatsoever. But Hugo, on the whole for this entire championship, are you very satisfied? Because watching you right here, we all are. We really enjoy the way you drove this year.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hugo, anyone who you'd like to thank for the season so far? And any team members, any sponsors, any friends, family members as such?
Thank you to everyone at Powerslide for I joined the Powerslide off before the Texas week, and it helped a lot setting up the cars, working together to improve pace, and so everyone at Powerslide, a big thank you to them.
Well, tough luck for the championship, but it was brilliant watching you race, Hugo. See you for the next year, hopefully.
Thank you.
Well, that, folks, right there was Hugo Olsen. Next up, we're actually going to bring David Soranzo in. And David, quite an eventful race in the end for you. How did it go, according to you?
Hi guys, so I decided for this last race to see you because I didn't come yet.
Exactly.
So as I finished P3 in the championship, I'm really happy with the result. I think Adam and Hugo were too fast, especially on the last rounds. So I'm on the podium. I'm happy. This series is very cool with a lot of respect on the track. A lot of respect between drivers that fight for the championship. So it was cool. Talking about the race, I spun 2 times exiting the pit, so I lost 20 seconds, and then the podium was not reachable. So P5 was certainly the best I can do in this race.
Well, you spoke about the spin right there. Was that just because of cold tires and the throttle and having too much power in the end?
Yes, that's right. Especially on the second, after the second stop, I was just behind Hugo, and I would like to stay behind him to have the draft, and too much on the throttle, and then the car with the cold tires was really hard to handle.
Well, still, P5 is quite a good result, but sadly, David, last race of the season, it all comes to an end. How would you sum up this year, if you had to describe it, this whole season that we've had so far?
I think the first half of the championship I was more competitive compared to Adam, for example. And Sissi has been driving for Satellite. I think he's really faster. And I saw that especially in, don't remember the round, the track, I think it was in Laguna, where I was 1 lap off compared to Hugo and Adam. So I think for tonight, P5 is my place, and in the championship, I think P3 is okay for me.
Well, absolutely. It's quite a good result. And David, before we let you go, is there anyone who you'd like to thank for the result? Any friends, family members, teammates as such?
I think I would thank especially RaceBot, because I really appreciate that you broadcast this series, because there are also some good races with 3K or 4K drivers, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very cool to see pros in PSC or driving and having a crazy pace. But I think it's also appreciable to see races with amateur drivers like us. So thank you very much for this.
Well, you call yourself amateur, but the racing, David, was absolutely superb. Pleasure having you on the broadcast, and all the very best, man.
Thank you very much, guys. See you next year.
Yes, indeed. That, folks, was David Soranzo. And man, it's a bit of an emotional moment, isn't it? The end of a season. What a year it's been so far.
What a year it's been. We've been delighted to be able to provide the coverage here of the IndyCar iRacing Series. The last 11 rounds, we had a bit of a late start, Sumo, but we didn't let that affect us. We got caught up. We had some fantastic racing, both on the ovals and on these road and street courses, and it's been great to see the championship play out, because, you know, the IndyCars is a small community on iRacing, but it's a very passionate community and some very committed drivers, and a new champion has been crowned. It is Adam Crane for Satellite Racing. I can't wait to next year and see exactly what it's going to be like.
Likewise, I just cannot wait to see how these drivers work even harder and get themselves up another notch. Where will that take them? Well, if there's one thing that we can assure you, it's just going to lead to some even more exciting racing, perhaps just as good as the one that we're seeing right here today on the real Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But that today, Arjuna, was epic.
That was epic indeed. And so for the final time this season, we'll take one more look at this 15-round schedule. We started all the way in Texas, the April 24th. Some 6 months ago. Man, time really flies. And now October 2nd, we finish it off at Speedway, Indiana. What a place to do it. And Sumo, before we wrap up, any last words? Obviously, You've been part of some other IndyCar broadcasts here on the RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esport Network, but the IndyCar iRacing Series, I'm really hoping that next year we continue to get the kind of turnout that we saw in some of these broadcasters' races.
Absolutely. It should be a more popular series because this car, of course, is very fun to drive. I'm sure you'll agree with that. Not the same with the aero screen, for sure, but it's still something very enjoyable. And on the whole, we've seen some very good tactical racing. And I say tactical very importantly because normally on iRacing, you can get your Mazda MX-5s and whatnot to have a very good side-by-side race. But the tactics, there's nothing quite like the IndyCar Series. And this one has just been fantastic from start to end. Sometimes it may seem slightly dull, but on the whole, it never fails to deliver.
And it's another busy weekend here on RaceSpot TV. You don't want to miss tomorrow, the final iRacing special event of the year. It is the Petit Le Mans, powered by VCO, 10 hours of endurance racing action from Road Atlanta, with commentary to be provided by Radio Show Limited. Sunday is going to be a crazy day as well, so please remember to stay tuned into the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. Well, for the final time this season, for myself, Arjuna Kankipati, for my co-commentator Sumil Arora, we thank you for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the winter's racing action. We hope to see you back in April for the third year of this IndyCar iRacing series, but for now, it's so long.